There it is. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Rachel, and this is the Jones Health and Safety Committee's September 2021 meeting. Thank you so much for coming. I am going to drop the agenda in the chat. But I'm also going to share my screen, so you don't have to look at it on your phone if you don't want to, or your computer. Can everyone see this? Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to call us to order. And I'll just go down the line. So Daniel.
Here.
Violet.
Here.
Dr. Plunkett.
Here.
And I am here. So that puts 4 out of the 5 of us permanent members present. So we have quorum. And then I wanted to do a quick approval of this agenda. So we'll do another roll call. Daniel.
Here. Or yes, sorry.
Cool. Yeah, I always get tripped up by that too. Violet.
Yes.
Dr. Plunkett.
Yes.
And Rachel's a yes as well. Great. So I actually made a little slide deck for us. And the first thing that we're going to do is do a quick introduction. And so if you're on Zoom, if you're in your car, no worries. But if you can, use the emoji react button to tell us who you are really quickly. Are you a student, you administrator, teacher, parent, community member? I apologize, the parent emoji is what it is. I thought it was the least egregious, sorry. Yeah, it was better than the crying emoji, I thought. So I will go ahead and, did I do a reaction? I don't think I did. I'm whatever the celebratory one is. So I'm a community member. So we have a good mix of everyone here. And so just really quickly, I wanted to do an overview of the Health and Safety Committee for those who are new to this committee. We had our first meeting in January of 2021, and there was a safety committee in the fall of 2020 that was formed in response to the school resource officer conversations that were happening at Jones. And then in February and March of 2021, we were discussing, among other things, the Eagle Days and reinstating those, or the full Eagle Day. A lot of students expressed how helpful those were during the pandemic. So we talked about that. And then April in 2021, we actually held a virtual bystander intervention training in collaboration with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, which was pretty well attended. I learned a lot, and several students attended as well, which was great. And then May of 2021, there was a student safety forum that was held and basically put on by 3 amazing students, one of whom is here. And we got the chance to hear from a few students about safety and what priorities they had for the Jones whole school safety plan. And then this summer, Daniel and I, in collaboration with Mr. Mitchell and a few other members of the Jones school community, worked on a whole school safety plan, which the local school council for Jones voted on this summer as well. And that plan is in effect now, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So that's kind of where getting you caught up. And then the other side of it is the weird part about this committee, which is that it's a public body. And if you're unfamiliar with what that means, basically the local school council for Jones and for all CPS schools are public bodies, which basically means they fall under the Freedom of Information Act, as well as the Open Meetings Act, among other things. And that means that we can't talk about anything really in private as it pertains to the council if we are in a majority, basically. What that means for this subcommittee is that the permanent members of the committee, AKA anyone who expresses an interest in attending these meetings regularly, cannot discuss meeting topics in private or without a public audience, basically. Which is a long way of saying I have to record all these meetings, and every single meeting is uploaded to a public Google folder. So if you ever miss a meeting, you want to watch all of the meetings that the Health and Safety Committee and the local school council have held. Also the Budget Committee and the Equity Committee, all of those meetings are posted on a public Google folder, which, if I can multitask, maybe I can link now. Yes. So I'm linking the health and safety public folder. If you just want to bookmark it and look at it later, you don't have to. There's a lot in there, but there's also one for the equity committee, like I said, as well as the budget committee, and then the local school council. So that was 5 minutes, I hope. Trying to keep to my timer. And so there's a number of things on our agenda tonight. The one I thought I would just put at the top was some questions related to COVID safety protocols at Jones. And I wanted to just highlight something that Daniel actually brought up at our August LSC meeting, which was student protocols for COVID. I was just wondering if those would be made available to students in the form of a guidebook, or if students have received something with a procedure for what to do in the case of a positive test result or things like this. And so I actually don't know if Dr. Plunkett, you might be the best person to ask that or direct that question to.
I'm sorry, I'm in my car, and I couldn't hear very well. Can you repeat the full question again?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the question was just if there's going to be some sort of guidebook or handbook for students with like COVID protocols, basically. So just like a summary of what students should do in the case of a positive case, or if they need to quarantine, things like that.
Yeah, perfect. So you were just, I don't know, you're breaking up. So there is a guidebook put out by CPS with guidance for parents and families, students alike, on what steps to take regarding COVID. Basically, CPS is using the self-reporting model. So if a student tests positive for COVID, they're to self-report to the Office of Student Health and Wellness. And then from that point, that office does interviews, they follow a whole protocol, do contact tracing, and then from there, students, based on the guidelines that they have in place, are asked to quarantine. And then there's also a guidance, part of the guidance is if a student is vaccinated and symptom-free, they submit their vaccination card, and then they don't have to quarantine. So that's kind of the abbreviated version, but it's, there was a whole guidebook sent out by CPS to all families.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does help. I was wondering if for Jones, I guess, just specifically, if there's anything that related to the school itself. I know that there was a positive case this week, for example. If students have questions, you know, is there a place that they could maybe like go to that's specific?
Yeah, so if students have specific questions they can ask any member of the administrative team. I have answered several questions from parents and students alike in the last couple of days, as have my colleagues, regarding COVID and testing positive and quarantine, all of that stuff. And we, at Jones, we follow the protocol that was set by CPS. If students have specific questions, they can come ask us specifically, as you know, there is like privacy issues involved. So, you know, just because a letter goes out, someone can't come and say, hey, I want to know who it is. I mean, they can't do that type of thing, right? Like if they have questions about if they need to quarantine, and the quarantines are based on the investigation that the contact tracers do, that the CPS contact tracers do with the information they're provided.
So I get that's helpful. Thank you. So I guess my second question kind of ties into the second point on the screen, which is about attendance reporting, because I know we talked about this in the March meeting, but if, for example, a parent wants to, if a student needs to quarantine, for example, if there's a way for parents to document that absent, if there's like a, you know, I know we talked about like a absence form.
Okay, just the, so if a student has to quarantine because of a COVID exposure, they test positive, whatever, those students can do remote learning. The teachers in their classroom teachers have 24 hours to get it set up for them, and teachers are notified of the kids who can't be admitted to school. There's a non-admittance list, but so students aren't necessarily marked absent if they log into their classes.
Okay. Okay.
And that is all in the guidebook as well. And I know that the link was sent by CPS. We can make a note to send that out to parents again, because I know a lot of times information gets sent out, even though it gets sent out several times, a lot of times it gets buried within a lot of other information, you know, links on top of links on top of links, and then people miss stuff.
Right, right.
It's hard. It's confusing. It's confusing. Unless you know specifically to look for something, you might not find it.
Right. That's true. Yeah. And I just wonder for students, I don't know, Daniel, I could be wrong, but just having something from the school might be helpful too, in addition to like whatever the guide that CPS sent.
Yeah, from a student perspective, that would definitely be useful. But like I get the point of like, kind of, you don't have to worry about it until it happens to you. But sometimes like people just want to know like the steps that would happen, you know, because I didn't know that students can attend online school if they have to quarantine, right? But that doesn't apply to me, right? But I would still kind of like to know that like in advance, right? Like, so I have that ease of mind. Yeah, that's just from like.
Yeah, and Daniel, I believe that was sent out. I will look to see where it was sent out to students and families. But yeah, we can send it out again. It's not a problem to send it out again at all. Like it, and the just from what I've seen, like from what's happened at Jones and other schools, they're not like quarantining whole classrooms like happened in the fall. I mean, it could happen that way, but I haven't seen that happen in a high school just yet. I haven't heard of it. It could, like in the high schools that I'm very familiar with, I haven't seen a whole classroom get quarantined, so to speak. But yeah, we'll make sure to send out that guidance again, so people know that if you are placed in quarantine and you cannot return because you know you're unvaccinated, et cetera, whatever reason you can't return, there is specific guidance about how much online you log in for, and you do not get marked absent. But it has to be, it's not just if kids are sick. Does this make sense, Daniel? Like, it's not just if you feel sick and you stay home for a day because of whatever reason. You can't do remote learning for that. It's only if you're under these quarantines. So we will make sure to send out the whole guidance to you again, and to all the kids, not just you, Daniel, but everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. It could be also useful to place it on the website because I don't think it's there. I've been like checking it every once in a while because I find it to be helpful. Like,
Oh,
with
okay, I can post
conversation,
the link.
yeah, I think that
Yeah,
would
we
be
can
good
post
better.
the link on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, that is not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Cool. So then that takes us to, I think we might have covered what does remote learning look like for students in quarantine? We know now that they'll be able to tune into classes virtually. And then I know too, Dr. Plunkett, I had some questions about testing. So I don't know, are students able to sign up or opt into a testing program? Or is that, I know CPS.
So yeah, I can explain that very quickly. So of course, like the way CPS sent the testers out to school, like they said, the testers are coming this day to your school. The testers arrive with, not a lot of information. So the any student, any teacher, any staff member who wants to get tested can get tested. The testers are in our school. Last week they showed up in the morning, and we had told them that like it might be better for them to come, a little later in the day and lunch period, so students wouldn't feel like they have to miss instructional time to get tested. Not that we wouldn't let them out of class if they wanted to, but sometimes students don't want to miss, a class. They would rather stay in class to get their instruction. So we'll see tomorrow what time they show up. And any student who's in our school whose parents have signed off that they can get tested. Any teachers can come down and get tested anytime they want. And then once the vaccine is mandatory as of October 15th. So for teachers, not for students, but for and staff, for teachers and staff, I should say. And teachers who aren't vaccinated will have and don't have their vaccination uploaded, whatever, to the system, will have to be tested weekly.
Got it.
And I know, like, you're probably wondering, so how are students going to know they can be tested? So the people came with a list, but any student can really get tested. So we are going to send that out when the testers, the COVID testers, let us know exactly when they're going to be there. We will send it out. People can come and get tested.
Great. Cool. Well, then I'm going to close that for now. And I think we might talk a little bit more about it tomorrow night. But thank you, Dr. Plunkett, for that update. And so the next part of, I think I skipped. Did I skip? Yeah, I did. I skipped a lot. Okay, so this is something related to COVID, but the last thing we'll talk about in relation to COVID, which is, I thought we could just do COVID first and then move on to other things. I know we're all tired of talking about COVID, but this is something that Ms. Logan actually brought to my attention, which I didn't know. And I thought, I agreed with Ms. Logan. She said that this would be something interesting to talk about tonight, which is last week, the Los Angeles Unified School District basically it started implementing a mandate for students to be vaccinated that are 12 and older, and in order to attend class. And so just wanted to put this on the table as something to ask y'all basically. What do you think about this student vaccine mandate? And as Dr. Plunkett said, there is a mandate for CPS faculty and staff to be vaccinated or to provide proof of vaccination by October 15th. And so, yeah, I was just wondering, the LAUSD is the first school in the nation to do this, but other school districts are following suit or thinking about following suit, sorry. So yeah, this is kind of like an open question, I guess.
So Rachel, I'll just share my opinion on this. I personally think like vaccination is a good thing, but I really feel that there will be some pushback depending in with some people until it's FDA approved. But from what I've been hearing in the news, the Pfizer vaccine should be FDA approved shortly, I'm hoping. So I feel that it, you know, because it's not FDA approved, it's really hard to push. I mean, I believe in vaccination and I want everyone to stay healthy, but I also know even now, even when stuff that is FDA approved, people can still get religious exemptions and health exemptions for certain vaccines. You know, everyone has to turn in their vaccination, but there are select students who are exempt from the vaccines for whatever reason. So I just think, yeah, I think, you know, keeping the school community healthy and all that is really great. But I was reading a little bit about that, and I'm just wondering about the possibility of pushback because it's not FDA approved for, you know, children, small children, and like 12 and over. I don't, not small, but like 12 and over adolescents. So I'm just be concerned about a little bit of pushback. And if anything were going to happen like that, it would not be something that Jones could do on their own. Like Jones could not require students to be vaccinated. It would have to be a CPS, like a full CPS mandate to require that, right? So yeah, I mean, I support vaccines and everything, but I do know that there could be potential for a lot of pushback because it's not FDA approved.
Yeah, that's a really good point, the FDA approval issue. I know that's come up a lot. Does anyone else have any context or thoughts on this
Get a
one?
clarification on, is it 12 to 16 that's not FDA approved yet, or is it 16 and older that's FDA approved?
Yeah,
You know,
Cynthia, for the Pfizer vaccine, it's
Mhm.
only approved for 16 and over. It's not approved for 12 to 16-year-olds. So it's only approved for 16 and over. The emergency use authorization is for 12 to 16-year-olds.
okay, so that would be sort of like our sophomores, juniors, seniors who could get, who are
Depending on when their birthdays are. You know, there's some, we have, you know, 14, 15-year-old. I mean, some people don't turn 16 till like the end of their sophomore, you know. So it could be some freshmen, sophomores. It just kind of depends when birthdays are.
Mhm.
Well, the reason I brought it up was because, I mean, obviously it protects our most vulnerable, our 12 years and younger students, siblings to our older students. And also, I realize that there are like exemptions, but also, you know, there's, you know, let's see. Sorry, oh, here it is. I just wanted to look at my notes real quick. So I was just saying, yeah, so I know we have the right to our own medical decisions, but those rights aren't absolute. They do not include the right to inflict harm, and actually, you know, not getting the vaccine could inflict harm to the 12 and under and those who are immunocompromised. Right now, we have vaccines that are mandated. I mean, we have vaccinations for contagious diseases like mumps and measles that are far less risky than COVID. So that's sort of my main points there.
Cynthia, I absolutely agree with you. I'm just looking at like what, I just always look at the potential of what, you know, how is the public going to respond and how is everybody going to respond? And, you know, that's where I'm kind of coming from. And if anything were like that were to go into effect, as I said, it would have to be a Jones decision, not a Jones decision, but a CPS decision, because we are part of a bigger district.
Right. So then I would just add then is that, you know, it would be in solidarity with other local school councils that we would try to get a mandated vaccine for the district.
You know, I think that is actually just thinking about the way that the CPS is run. I mean, Lori Lightfoot did just, you know, require city employees to provide proof of vaccination. So I actually don't think it would be something that, you know, the higher ups would necessarily go against. And so, yeah, that's actually, that's a really interesting point. And I think the local school councils could, you know, get together around the pushing for that mandate for students as well. So that's yeah, no, it's, I would be interested in pursuing that more with anyone else, Mr. Logan included.
I have a question. Has CPS given any indication that once FDA approval is in place for 12 to 16-year-olds, that they will require it?
I don't think so.
So my take on that is that I would guess that because, CPS requires, the other vaccinations, the polio, diphtheria, tetanus, measles, mumps, rubella, that since all of those are required, unless you file an exemption, whatever for that, I would guess that they would if it's FDA approved. That would be my guess. Now, I don't work downtown. I don't work for the Office of Student Health and Wellness, but that would be my guess, my best guess based on what is happening now with all the other vaccinations. Like even now, people have to get an updated meningitis vaccine when they're like, a lot of the seniors have to get that. So yeah, that would be my best guess.
So you're saying there might not be as much pushback as maybe we might get.
Oh, if it was if it was FDA approved, I think you would have I don't think you would have half as much pushback, but that's just my opinion, because
I agree.
people,
I think it does make a big difference. I think
it's a
that's
huge
very
difference.
significant one. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it is
because
FDA
the
approved
thing
for
is that
half
if
our
something is not, this is just what I've read, right? The reason people don't want to get a vaccine that's not FDA approved, because if something goes wrong with their health because of the vaccine, there is no liability for the drug company. If it's FDA approved and something goes wrong, there is liability. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah.
I mean, you could test the question. I mean, you could pose that question for, I'm not sure, I mean, certainly CDPH, Chicago Department of Public Health, but I mean, if there's a centralized student health and wellness, you could queue up the question to them and find out if the thinking is once it's FDA approved, that it'll be required or not. I mean, just
Yeah.
at some point it will be. I mean, it has been for adults, it's going to follow for, 12 to 16-year-olds too. And so I think everything everyone's saying makes complete sense. I mean, certainly vaccines are the way to protect a community. And, unfortunately, there is resistance without FDA approval, and it's pretty significant and problematic. But I'm sure CDPH is thinking through this and probably, engaged with whatever. I don't know the system exactly how it works for CDP or CPS. I'm sure they're queuing up this question, and it might just be a matter of asking how they're thinking about it at this point and what we can anticipate.
And,
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
And to your point, Ms. Logan, about if other local school councils might be interested in this, I think that's worth pursuing. And I think it would make a better case to CDPH to maybe have multiple LSCs kind of asking this question about FDA approval. So I would look into that. I will look into that. And I hadn't thought about it that way. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I'll just say, I work at a local college and the liaison to CDPH. So at the college level, I've been navigating this, for quite a while. And the FDA approvals certainly have helped at that level.
Got it. That's helpful. Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself? I feel like the parents here should introduce themselves.
Oh, sure. Yeah. My name is Joe Behan, father of Chloe, who's a sophomore at Jones. And I'm a clinical psychologist and a dean at a local college, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where I run a wellness center that includes a counseling, health, and disability service. And I've been, doing this work for, 4 blocks away from Jones for the past 2.5 decades, or work leading up to this. And so, when I was first invited to connect with Rachel and this committee, I thought one thing that I might be able to bring is just some, one, local knowledge of good resources in the area, and 2, comparisons to how we handle these things in higher ed. It's great. It's good to be here. What a great
Thank
group.
you so much for coming. Yeah, your perspective was really, really valuable. And Gregory or Greg?
Yes. Hi, my name's Greg Berlowitz. I'm a parent of Olivia, who's a new ninth grader. Um, I'm also an estate planning attorney. I'm interested in this committee because, and you're, Cynthia, you're her comp sci teacher. I'm interested because Olivia's transgender, and I was researching transgender policies in CPS, and I reached out to Rachel earlier in the summer, and I think they're talking about that today, about Jones having a very visible, very strong gender policy available to everybody. So I'm interested in that topic.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you could make it. So yeah, let's go ahead and just, that's a perfect segue into our next agenda item, which is the Jones Student Handbook for and updating potentially updating the Jones Student Handbook for trans and gender nonconforming students. And so I looked into this after talking with Greg over email this summer. And so what I learned is that CPS does have a policy in place district-wide for trans students. And the question that Greg just posed is there a policy within the Jones Student Handbook, or can there be a school-specific policy that is explicitly directed toward or kind of speaking toward trans and gender nonconforming or non-binary students. And so I did include this line from the CPS LGBTQ supportive environments guidelines, which is the policy that says, in order to better support transgender and gender nonconforming students, school principals shall ensure that the transgender and gender nonconforming guidelines are implemented at the school level. And so, that's talking about implementation, but then this is a sample policy from Taft High School, their student handbook. It's on page 19. And I will link this Google Slides deck in the public folder if you want to look at all of these links later. But this is what it looks like. And thank you, Greg, for sending this to me. There was another Illinois Safe Schools Alliance policy that I didn't include here, but this is just kind of, I thought, one way to do this. And then tagging on to that, I was just wondering if, Greg, you wanted to add anything about why you think this might be an important piece to add to the student handbook?
Sure. I think that the CPS transgender policy is pretty terrific overall in the district. I think it's really well written and very open and very, very supportive. I personally feel that each school should expose that on their website and say, hey, we have this policy here, especially Jones, which has spoken about having a very open gender policy. We have, I've already spoken to Dr. Plunkett about this, and Cynthia has heard some of the issues that I'll talk about in a second. But I think that for student visibility, for student support, knowing that the school has a policy that's right on the website, right on the front page, it's very affirming. Kids who are coming in at 14, 15 years old, they can be insecure, they can have a lot of fear, they can have a lot of trepidation about walking into school as a transgender person, or any sort of gender non-conforming student. And I think it's as adults, it's hard for us to see how incredibly powerful it is for a school to put that front and center, to put even a flag or a link to a policy where all students can see it, and they feel very seen. And I think that's an important and very effective way to support students.
Yeah, Greg, I want to say thank you for being there because I know we've emailed a lot at the
Yes.
beginning of the school year. But we, without going into too much detail, yeah, I appreciate you giving those suggestions about just putting a link to it right on the website, so people really see it. It's not that it's not there. It's not that people don't know, but just like you said, for the 14-year-old student who's coming into high school and maybe insecure, they see it, they know it,
Mhm.
they right away feel welcome, and that it's important to them, right? I know we have, I have the whole like sign on my door and everything, but that's not like, unless a student comes to my office, they're not going to
Right.
necessarily see that. So yeah, I appreciate that suggestion, and that's definitely something I think we can do. Like that is such an easy thing to do. And like you said, it's sometimes as the adult, it's you think, oh, it's there. Yeah, and it is there. And it's not that it's not there, but for the 14-year-old, it's looks a little different. So I think I appreciate you bringing that awareness and bringing it up.
Are there any student groups
Yes.
focus on transgender experience?
Yeah, there are. Mr. Coleman is one of the sponsors. The other sponsor, oh, I think Miss Belkey works with him. Yes, so there are, I think, 2 groups that on it.
So one question I have is,
Been running. I've seen like advertisements in the schools. So there's like one group specifically, LGBTQ group, and then I can't remember off the top of my head the other group.
one
But yes,
question I had, Dr. Plunkett, is if a school specific, like a policy specific to Jones could be added to the handbook, because I know
yeah,
right
I'm
now.
pretty sure it might not be in the hard print one, but I know we had talked about adding the not an amendment, but like this amendment to the handbook so that students could see it front and center. So that's not a problem at all, because I
Okay.
know we have it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I was actually wondering about that. So we did just to talk about, student groups. I was wondering if it, this is just an idea, but just if trans students at Jones could be, a part of looking at that policy and maybe offering comments
Yeah,
on it.
Rachel, actually, when the policy was devised, whatever came up, there were students involved.
Okay, great.
So so there were students involved, back, I don't know how many years ago it was now, with the gender neutral restrooms and all of that, there were students involved in helping us frame the policy.
And perhaps it can be as simple as restating like Taft did what the CPS policy is, but in the context of Jones, just in a couple of paragraphs. It doesn't
Absolutely.
necessarily have to be rewritten.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like we have it. It's just like you said, restating it and making it just making it evident for everyone to see and making everyone aware. I think that's the key piece here, like just having it out there and clearly communicated.
And one thing I don't see in the Taft policy, and I'm not sure if the policy that you're referring to, Dr. Plunkett, includes, is I know pronouns, even for like, especially for even faculty at Jones. I was just wondering if there's something in the policy about pronoun use. There's not, well, there is something in this native pronoun corresponding to gender identity, but I know for students who may want to, not announce their shifting pronouns, but just if there's something in place about that.
About their preferred, I know, like if a student within the student system, students can put their preferred, like the teachers can see their preferred pronouns, their preferred names, right? Because we even have some students who may identify as non-binary or transgender, but like not legally have done name changes or things like that. But there is a section where we can add it in their preferred, even though it hasn't been changed legally yet. So
Right.
there is a section for that.
Great. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. And thank you, Greg, for coming tonight to bring this up with us. And
Sure, and I'd be very happy to help on anything in this realm.
Yeah, and Greg, I know you have my email, so you can
Yes.
reach out anytime, and maybe we could schedule a conversation either in person, over the phone, whatever works best for you. And I'd be happy
Wonderful.
to work with this on you.
Wonderful. Be happy to do that.
Thanks. Yeah, I
Great.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
so I think we will wrap up this agenda item. Thank you again, Greg and Dr. Plunkett. And so I will move to quickly do a little update on the Jones Whole School Safety Plan. As this was part of one of the implementation components to the plan that we discussed as a whole school safety committee this summer. So for Greg and Joe, the whole school safety plan is a directive from CPS, which is expressed in this graphic here. That was an idea created by Jadine Chow, who is the chief of safety and security for CPS, and CPS Office of Safety and Security more generally, following the summer of 2020 and discussions about school resource officers. And so this past year, every school with school resource officers and without them was asked to create a secondary school, was asked to create a whole school safety committee comprised of various school stakeholders and LSC members, parents, students, administrators, teachers, security staff, basically to come up with a plan specific to each school for safety, physical, emotional, and what's known as relational trust as well, which I'm sure, Joe, you know a lot about. And so this is kind of the graphic that was invoked a lot. And the timeline for everything, tried to condense it here, but in July of 2021, the Jones LSC did vote to end the school resource officer program, and also voted to approve the whole school safety plan. And then in August of 2021, Jones administration did post a position for a culture and climate coordinator, a position which will be funded through the funds that originally were used for the school resource officers. So basically CPS gave us $50,000 per officer that we chose to remove from the school. And in addition to other funds, it's a little bit, there's a lot of funds that go into it, but that's partially what the funding is going to be used for. And then this month, the committee for hiring that culture and climate coordinator met to review potential candidates for the first time. And this individual, or the role that the Jones administration is envisioning them playing in the local school council kind of agreed as a part of the whole school safety plan is a social and emotional learning component, is kind of someone engaged to address emotional and behavioral needs at the school, which was identified as a really urgent need in the whole school safety plan. And so in May of 2022, which seems like really bizarre to say, we will reconvene, and I'm one of the people on the committee, the whole school safety committee, will reconvene and kind of assess how the plan is being implemented. But one of the kind of places that we're going to make check-ins basically for the plan is was determined to be the health and safety committee meetings. So we will be talking about the whole school safety plan, components of it. I decided to focus on the culture and climate coordinator hiring this time, but there may be another component of the plan that we talk about, like we're partnering with Umoja, which is a nonprofit that provides SEL related curriculum. So I just wanted to leave time for any questions about that. I know that was kind of a lot of information.
I had one. We've hired the other security guard, right, as part of the whole school safety plan. Like we have that security guard.
You know, that's a good question. And Mr. Mitchell is
Daniel,
actually,
Daniel, sorry, I had to come off mute. Yes, another security guard has been hired. He just started. He started last week. Today's Monday. He started last week for sure. And he's getting himself acclimated to the school. Getting hired by CPS, getting the staffing to go through. I mean, once you choose to hire somebody, they have to do on board. They have to do like TB tests, background checks, criminal checks, all of that before they can be hired. Because I know the person, was interviewed quite some time ago, but it eventually all got completed and he has been hired.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to check. Yeah.
Yeah. And Daniel, if you want to go down to the front desk and ask Mr. Harris, Mr. Horatio Harris, the head of security, he'd probably be very happy to introduce you to him.
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thanks.
good question, Daniel. Yeah, another component of the whole school safety plan was hiring an additional security guard as well. So thank you for mentioning that, Daniel.
I'll just say, as a parent, it's an impressive plan. I applaud all the work you're doing on this. It's really heartening to see this kind of work being done.
Yeah.
Goes to Mr. Mitchell, I feel like.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Mitchell has done the heavy lift on this with the help of some students. It has been, Mr. Mitchell has done the heavy lifting.
So, Mr. Mitchell, just to update you, I was just kind of going over doing the health and safety check-in for the whole school safety plan, kind of explaining what we talked about this summer. And then also going over the culture and climate coordinator hiring meeting, things like that. So that's the update there.
Okay, my apologies for my tardiness. I did catch the tail end of Dr. Fuentes speaking on one of the new hires as far as our security team.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for being here. And did you want to add anything? You don't have to, but I just if you wanted to add anything, I know you weren't here for the whole school safety discussion, so you may be like, what should I add? But I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Well, no, I appreciate it, but I don't want to run the risk of repeating something that was already said. So, due to the interest of time, I'll table it, and if maybe if I hear something that maybe was missed, I'll chime in at that point in time.
Good. And then, okay, so if there are no more questions about that, we can move on to our next item, which is the last two items are actually going to be really quick. So the first one is good news, which I feel like is really great to share, which is that starting January 1st, 2022, public school students in Illinois can be excused 5 days for mental health reasons. So I will link the slide deck in the public folder, like I said, and you can check out the bill if you want to. But yeah, I just wanted to give some more context here. So 8 other states have passed similar bills in the past 2 years. And contrary to what we initially thought, it does not go into effect immediately. I think there's just kind of like a buffer for schools to become aware of this new policy. But yeah, this seemed health and safety related, so thought I would add it.
Yeah, and Rachel, can I just add something about that? Like,
Sure.
when we first discussed this back, I don't know if it was May or June, when we discussed that. I mean, I just want to make sure that everyone knows, like at Jones, we've never said that kids couldn't take mental health days or anything like that. The only thing we asked is that, parents called in and said, my son, my daughter, my child is going to be out, right? Like, so I just want, because we never said, unless you've got strep throat or you've got the flu or you're vomiting, you can't take a day off. We've always been very liberal. The only thing we did ask is that parents call in and excuse their students so that we knew that the parents knew their child wasn't in school, kind of as a, a liability thing.
Cool. Yeah, no, thank you for that context. That is a good to know. And it's nice to know that, it'll be a statewide law soon. So yeah, there's just wanted to include that. And then the last thing is very exciting, which is, and I wanted to mention it here. I wondered I was in communication with another student who might have attended, but they didn't make it. There's 2 open positions on Jones Local School Council. So this was something that was in the works for a long time, which was to add more student representation to local school councils. And effective this summer, so the end of July, we can have up to 3 student positions. So I just wanted to put it out there. If you're a student, if you're a student's friends, if you're a student yourself, like Daniel, you're already there. You're already the student rep, but just wanted to get the word out. If you want to run for a position on the LSC, I think we need to read the law because I'm not sure how the elections would work actually, but maybe that's just my ignorance. Daniel, you have a hand raised, go for it.
No, that was what I was going to ask. Like, what's the process of filling these? Like, are they similar to, like, I remember we didn't have enough community representatives, and then we went into like a little us voting for that. I remember that occurred.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how that occurred, but we probably should read the law. It is really long.
Yeah, Daniel, I think in this case, because these are new positions, they're not positions that weren't filled. There would be like there is when you were elected, like it's called like a non-binding student poll to make the recommendation. So we kind of have like an election, because I think when we didn't have enough community members, or if a parent, like if a student graduates or they can no longer serve on the LSC, and it's during the term, the LSC just decides. But I think this is because those are, and I'm not 100% sure, I'll have to look into this, because those are positions that have become vacant or weren't filled at the election, but it might be a little different because these are new positions. So we'll have to look into the details of that, and hopefully we can look at the law, and hopefully the Office of Local School Council Relations can help us get some clarity around that.
Okay, definitely. And like, if anything, we would just have to wait maybe until normal elections were held for students, right? And
Yeah,
then
but
just-
we could even do an election, say, hey, these, not like an election, but hey, we're doing a poll. These students are wishing to be, just to get student input, because since the students are representing the students' constituency, it would be nice to have student input.
And I think
I'll
if
say
we
this
were to
kind-
hold- or sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'll say this kind of work, this student work, is really, really attractive and appealing to colleges and universities. It very, very much strengthens an application. And I say that based on, some work I do nationally in mental health and mental health issues. So kudos to those of you doing it. And, I hope you'd have a lot of interest in this, because it's really important, and it's really well regarded in higher ed.
I had a question. So about the other 2 student representative positions, has that been advertised, so to speak, or, brought to the students' awareness yet?
I believe it has, but I saw an announcement about it somewhere, and we can make sure to advertise it, on a daily basis, just to kind of, create some energy around it, so to speak.
So are those students then going to be filling out like the candidate statement so that the student body could decide who is the
Absolutely.
best candidate? Okay.
Yep, I think that's how it has to be, considering that these are new positions that are created. And I think that, because they are representing the entire student body,
Yes.
with the whole student body has to be aware of who is in there and kind of have a say on who represents them.
Okay.
Good question. Yeah, I think it would be great to advertise this because, like Joe said, it is something that that can, the students can use when they're building their applications, but also, you know, just if they want to be involved. But I also wanted to say students vote for students. I don't know if that was clear.
Yes.
And yeah, parents vote for parents and community members, teachers vote for teachers, that sort of thing. So parents wouldn't be voting for students or anything like that.
Right.
For people
Right,
who
yeah.
aren't familiar with LSC.
Right, Rachel. So like parents won't get the opportunity to vote for a student, or teachers or
Yeah,
community won't be voting for students, right? It's like how, you know, the teachers voted for the teacher reps. Yeah, and parents vote for parents, et cetera.
okay. One more statement. This is Raquel Dunn. I'm just stating my name since it looks like Dr. Plunkett is on the phone. So this is Raquel Dunn. So if school needs help speaking with the Office of Local School Relations regarding these two positions, I would be willing to help school, get connected with people in the office.
Oh, Raquel, that would be fantastic. If you and I'm happy to, collaborate with you on that, just so we
Okay.
can get these positions. I would like to see the positions filled sooner than later. It's not,
Right.
Daniel knows how much I respect him and his work, but I think it's important since we have the positions that they're filled, right?
Yes. Yes.
Daniel, did you want to ask the question?
Yeah, for the process, I know Dr. Plunkett, you said earlier it was like a student poll, non-binding student poll. So how does that make it different from a regular election?
Well,
because I
this
think
is like actually, so this is what, it's not that we wouldn't, the person who gets elected, it's not that we wouldn't approve that person, but it has to be sent to the school board or local school council office for them to approve. Not at Joan, but I've been involved in local school councils. I've been in CPS for 20 years, for a long time. So I know that there has been cases where someone would get elected, but because of something, they weren't approved to serve on the board. Does that make sense? So it's not
No,
like
yes,
it's not like Jones would say, oh, this student can't do it. It would just, if there was something out there. And I don't foresee that happening with any Jones student. Quite frankly, I don't know of any Jones student who would not be approved. So yeah, I just like to say that so people are aware of what it actually is.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Good discussion about that. If it's all right with everyone, I'll move on. I'd actually think this might be our last item, so it might end early, which I'm just snapping because that's great. But yeah, I wanted to leave it open for questions. If anyone has questions or comments, you can also email anyone listed here. And especially if you're interested in becoming a permanent member, that is something we can totally talk about and do. So just send me an email. And it just requires attending these meetings regularly and committing to showing up at the meeting basically and being present for the OMA purposes. But I also just did that thing where I said, does anyone have questions? And then I didn't leave space for questions. So does anyone have any questions? No more questions.
Rachel, could I make a comment? This is Dr.
Sure.
Plunkett. Can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
And this is, I just want to compliment you on running a very efficient, agenda-driven, very focused meeting. I know when you started off back in January or whenever you started, you were a little nervous and you hadn't done this before, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate having the focused agenda, the clear discussions. It really, it's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I just want to, it's the third week of the school year. We have a lot going on and I want to respect everyone's time while also having good discussion. But thank you, Dr. Plunkett. I appreciate that. And as always, if you have suggestions for items that you want to add to the agenda, like Ms. Logan's vaccine mandate, which I definitely want to talk more about, please email me and I will add them to the Health and Safety Committee agenda. I am writing these agendas, but they are fluid documents. I'm happy to talk about anything and also other committee members are happy to talk about anything. So without further ado, I think we can adjourn the meeting, which is 11 minutes early, so.
Could
Oh,
I
yeah.
say something? Yeah, sorry. This is Raquel Don again. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Dr. Plunkett said about how you're doing a great job, Rachel. My first impression of you was via, emails and things like that back and forth. And honestly, when I saw you in person, I was expecting a much older person. So I really appreciated the maturity that you had, when speaking with me about serious issues. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not in high school. I will say that. I am a graduate student, but yeah, I do appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will see you all at the next meeting, hopefully. Until then, have a great evening.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rachel, we need to do a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. Okay, motion to adjourn. Can I get a roll call from Daniel?
Yes,
Sorry, motion to adjourn. Do I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Plunkett.
That's Dr. Plunkett.
Okay, roll call. Daniel,
Yes.
Violet,
Yes.
Dr. Plunkett,
Yes.
and Rachel's a yes. Okay, thank you for that. We are adjourned.